On behalf of all of you, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Mr. Hideaki. Mr. Hideaki is the Director, Environmental Management Team, Global Environment Department at JICA. JICA, as you know, stands for Japan International Cooperation Agency. It uses an array of development assistance schemes to meet the diverse needs of developing countries across the world. They have investments and projects in South Asia in sanitation. And Mr. Hideaki has kindly accepted our request, and we thank Dr. Sitaram for the connect to come today and speak to you about some of the projects that they are implementing in the South Asian region. He will be speaking to you for about 10 to 15 minutes, and after that, we will have the interaction session. With that, Mr. Hideaki, welcome, and thank you for accepting our request, and request you to please start your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Thank you.
Okay, right. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very much honored to make this speech today. So I try to share my presentation. Just hold on a second, please. Just hold on. Can you see this presentation?
Yes, sir, we can see it.
Okay, right. So once again, thank you very much, and I'm very much honored to make this presentation. My name is Matsuoka, the Director of Environmental Management Team 1 of Global Environment Department of JICA. So today...
So would you just like to click on the slideshow?
Yeah.
So we have to...
Sure. Just hold on.
The bottom right
I'm
side.
not actually
right.
good.
Sir, or else you can press F5, sir. F5.
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 Okay, F5.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
How about this?
Yeah.
Is
This
it
one.
okay?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So firstly, I'd like to briefly explain about what JICA is, and then introduce some case studies in Cambodia, Philippines, and Indonesia. Firstly, as some of you might already know, but JICA is implementing agencies of Japanese ODA, Official Development Assistance, working in around 150 countries. In our official development assistance, there are mainly two categories. One is bilateral assistance, and the other one is multilateral assistance. This multilateral assistance includes contribution to international organizations such as UN agencies, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, etc. But we, JICA, is involved in this bilateral assistance. And in this bilateral assistance, there are mainly three categories. Firstly, technical cooperation. The second one is finance and investment cooperation, including ODA loans and the private sector investment finance. And then thirdly, grant aid. So here is our approaches on sanitation sector. Here shows that this triangle shows the comprehensive approach among actors to improve the environment, human capacities. This triangle shows the infrastructure development from the top, and then financial management, institutional development, legal framework and planning, awareness raising, and society society and citizens at the bottom. So as you can see in our approaches, we involve various actors such as government, central local government, private sectors, citizens, and research institutes, etc. And then this slide shows the concept of cost comparison between on-site and off-site treatment systems. So actually, our approach on this sanitation section is based on this cost comparison. So this diagram shows the comparison of cost of construction and operation maintenance and population density. As you can see, when the population is sparse, the on-site sanitation system is more feasible. But when the population becomes dense, on-site treatment system, off-site treatment system, which is mainly the sewage treatment system, is more cost-effective. But so far, we JICA have been mainly supporting on this off-site centralized treatment systems, sewage treatment systems. And then our experience is actually in this on-site sanitation is not so much. But because of this, the current how do you say, trend of this CWIS concept, we are also now trying to introduce this on-site sanitation in our projects as well. So here are some examples of our support. The first one is Cambodia, wastewater management in Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia. Actually, in Cambodia, Phnom Penh, we have been supporting in water supply sectors for more than 20 years. But as you know, when water supply becomes higher, the volume of wastewater also increase. So based on this fact, in the last 10 years, we have been also supporting this wastewater treatment sector as well. Firstly, from 2014 to 2016, we implemented technical cooperation to formulate the master plans for wastewater and drainage systems. And then based on this master plan, now we have been supporting to develop the storage systems in Phnom Penh using this grant aid scheme. But in the meantime, we have been also supporting, providing this technical cooperation to improve roads and systems in sewage treatment. And then at the same time, the Kitakyushu city, which is a municipality, local government of Japan, also supports to operate and maintain of pumping station using grassroots technical cooperation. And then interestingly, the ADB also supports this roads and system, improvement of roads and systems in decentralized treatment. So with a combination of our JICA's cooperation and other implementing agencies like Municipality of Japan and other donor agency, we have been comprehensively supporting this improvement of sanitation system in Phnom Penh. And then second case study shows Metro Cebu area in the Philippines. Actually, this support, our support in Metro Cebu area started 2012 when this data collection survey has started. Although it says data collection survey, in this survey, we also supported to develop the strategy called Mega Cebu Vision 2050, which includes a wastewater treatment strategy as well. And then in this Mega Save Vision 2050, it includes the strategy to improve the rate of a population with proper waste treatment will improve from 0% at this moment till 50% by 2030 and 90% by 2050. And then to achieve this target, we also planning to support using our grant aid and the technical cooperation. And then plus public-private partnership as well. And then, yeah, I forgot to mention that to achieve this target, we also introduce this JICA system. Actually, I will explain about what JICA is in the next slide. Actually, this JICA is the technology of Japanese technology to treat both black water and gray water. And then this is an example of introduction of JICA system in Indonesia. And then this technology was introduced using this public-private partnership. Actually, the current situation in Indonesia, the new wastewater treatment regulation has been introduced. And then based on this new regulation, the effluent level of this wastewater has become much more strict than the past. So it used to be 100 ppm in BOD in the past, but nowadays this has been limited up to 30 ppm. So to achieve this effluent level, this JICA system has been pilotly introduced. And then using this JICA technology, the BOD level will be how to say minimized up to less than 20 ppm. And then I heard that nowadays this JICA system has been manufactured in Indonesia as well. And then this system is also now can be also exported to other neighboring countries. So this is an overview of JICA's partnership with private sector. JICA has increased the efforts to enhance the partnership with private companies with co-creation rather than simply ordering the business that align with JICA's priorities and design as conventional ODA. So the JICA has had our strengths such as network and trust with many countries, and the collaboration with public partners, and we also have human resources as experts. In the meantime, Japanese companies also have their strength, like technologies, ideas, funds, and their know-how. So using this mixture of strengths, both public and private sectors, we try to expand the social impact through co-creation with those companies. So here are key messages. So it is important to consider the following to improve the sanitation, making policies based on evidence-based planning with consideration of a mixture of centralized and decentralized systems, incorporate device concept into planning. Combination of software and hardware scaling up the impacts, utilizing of our experiences, not only in Japan, but from other countries and technologies, private partnership for innovative solution. And then pursuing win-win benefits for both the recipient and the partner countries. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. So if you have any comments and questions, please go ahead.
Dr. Sitaram, would you like to add something, and then we can start with the Q&A?
No, it was a very good presentation, and I appreciate Matsuoka-san. So maybe we should allow participants to ask questions so that we can use the time for him to respond.
Sure.
Please go ahead. Appreciate it.
So Mr. Hideaki, we can probably take the slide share away, and then we can just remove that. You can remove the presentation. Yeah. So there is a question here.
Okay, sure.
Our colleagues who wants to know if JICA supports capacity building in innovations in water and wastewater also, or is it largely infrastructure related?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your question. Yes, we support both. Yeah, as I showed in the first or second slide, we support hardware in grant aid as well as loan aid. Technical cooperation, we support to improve human capacity. Yeah, so including this innovative, approaches as well. Yeah, but as I mentioned, actually, we JICA members, staff members, actually myself as well, are not really the technical experts. So we utilize the know-how, the knowledge of the resources outside of JICA, such as mentioned, those Japanese companies, academicians, and local government, or even the central government. Yeah, so using this mixture of human resources, we try to find the best approach, best solution in specific areas of specific countries.
Thank you very much. Would any of the participants like to ask questions? The floor is now open for interaction, please.
Dr. Malini, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I have one question to Mr. Kasan. Sir, we had a excellent we had a very good presentation from Hashimoto-san on JICASO law, JICASO regulation, and the whole ecosystem that was developed in Japan for on-site sanitation system. And you have taken very nicely, your presentation spoke about introduction of on-site and off-site system, sewer system based on the density parameters. Very nice graph was shown. Now, when you took on-site system, JICASO system to Indonesia or Vietnam, how challenging was it to introduce a well-regulated package treatment systems in Vietnam as well as in Indonesia? And what are the lessons for South Asia, especially for our colleagues in India, Bangladesh, and Nepal? Because it is not just a technology piece. It requires a lot of standardization in terms of construction, monitoring, regulation. So could you show some, could you tell us some experiences and lessons for India? And
thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for your question. I think Mr. Hashimoto has already, actually, has Mr. Hashimoto already given the lecture to you?
Yes, yeah, in the
I think his network dropped.
Hello, can you
We
hear
had a
me?
detailed presentation from Dr. Hashimoto, and we also saw videos on Jakarta.
Okay, right. Yeah, actually, yeah, I think your point is very important. Yeah, our experience in JICA is actually, we have a long history of using JICA. And then, as you mentioned, to introduce JICA, not only technology, but legal framework and then institutional development is also important. And so I think as I showed in the beginning of the presentation, to introduce a certain technology, we should also consider such as such legal framework, financial framework, even the people's notions toward this technology. So I think luckily in Indonesia, this technology was successfully accepted, but in other countries, I don't think we can use exactly the same scenario. So as I mentioned, we have to arrange the acceptability of technologies, considering the institutional framework, financial issues, even the culture, people's customs. Yeah. So did I answer your question?
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Krishna Kumar, would you just like to quickly introduce yourself and ask your question? Mr. Krishna. Okay.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. Nice presentation. I'd like to know how far the modality is applicable in the context of India, looking at the community system, policy, everything.
In India.
Yeah, I'd like to know whether how far or how effective the modality is applicable in the context of India, looking at the community, structure, government policy, etc.
Yeah. Thank you for your question. Actually, I myself have to admit that I don't have much experience in India. So actually, it is a bit difficult for me to immediately answer your question. But I understand that India is very, how to say, very huge country with various culture, and so I think it is difficult to say in one word. So I think it depends on the places as well. Yeah, I think, yeah, it is a bit tough question for me.
Thank you. Ms. Bindya, would you just like to ask your question?
Thank you, Hidayati-san. Myself, Vidya Pokhil from JICA Nepal office. Thank you very much for your presentation, very comprehensive and understanding. I know like many of the JICA's project in sanitation are more on sewerage management and all, but just would like to know if JICA has any experience supporting the entire sanitation value chain, some projects, if there is some project in any cities or so, in which JICA has supported the entire sanitation value chain. Thank you. Just would like to know about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for your question. Yeah, as I mentioned in the presentation, so far we have been, even with sanitation, our focus has been mainly on storage systems, and then actually we are in the middle of take such a comprehensive approach, including the entire sanitation improvement, as you mentioned. Yeah. So but the examples I showed in Metro Server in the Philippines and Cambodia, and then we are also now planning to start a new project in Fiji and yeah, even in Nepal, Pokhara. Yeah, and in those projects, we are now trying to take more comprehensive approaches, not only in sewage network system or sewage treatment system, but include the on-site sanitation system. Then we try to improve the sanitation system in the whole community. So now, yeah, for your question, the simple answer is now we are in the middle of take such approach.
Thank you, sir. Hemaji, would you like to ask a question, please?
Good evening, sir. It was an excellent presentation. I just would like to know what are the, am I audible? Am I audible?
You are
Yes,
audible,
yes,
ma'am.
yes.
Yeah, I'm like, I just would like to ask what are the timelines or which is being considered for achieving 100% sanitation, and what is the monitoring mechanism and the regulatory framework which is being used while executing the projects.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Yeah, I think yeah, it also depends on the area or countries, where in which level they have been standing on. Then, based on that, we will see how long it will take to achieve 100% of sanitation coverage. But I think in many areas it's not so easy. So in our master plans, we normally think at least 10 years, but in many projects, the master plans include the timeline of like 20 years, even more, like 30 years. So yeah, it also actually relating to the economic development of the area and the country. So even if we develop a master plan, this is closely linked to other factors, mainly the economic development. So it is very difficult to say. But as an example of China, in the last 20 years, China has developed very quickly. And then nowadays in the urban areas, I think in most big cities or towns, the coverage is almost 100%, which is actually very surprising. We didn't expect such a huge fast improvement in 20 years ago. So yeah, it is very difficult to say, but yeah, it depends on the region, and then also relating to other factors, mainly the economic development.
Thank you, sir. Kamalji, would you like to ask a question?
Thank you, sir. I want to know, do you have any case study about the cost effectiveness of your project in the for the local bodies who is having less than 1,50,000 of population? As in India, most of the local bodies are not having much population, and so the case study, if you any have for the local bodies less than 50,000, 1 lakh.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, actually, as far as I know, we don't have such case studies, but as I mentioned, our focus has been mainly in the urban areas and supporting to develop this storage treatment systems. But I think your point is very important. We also need to research, study, how we can improve sanitation systems in rural areas. Yeah. So I think your insight is very important. So we will also consider how we can include the rural areas to improve their sanitation in our future project. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if a state government or municipality, urban local body in India wants to reach out to JICA for support, what is the process and how do they go?
Yes, yeah. We have our branch office in India, New Delhi. So yeah, you can easily access to our India office. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take two more questions, sir. May I request Mr. Nurul Aminji to please ask your question. So you're on mute, Mr. Nurul.
Yes. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Matsuoka-san, for your nice presentation. I just a simple question to you. Do you have any plan for sewage system project in Bangladesh, especially in Chittagong Water Supply and Sewage Authority?
So you're in Bangladesh?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay, right. Yeah, actually, yeah, I think this is a very good timing that we are now starting to dispatch our experts in sanitation sector in Chittagong, Chattogram. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So but actually, there are two persons. Yeah, they are storage experts, but as mentioned, those experts will also review the current situation and then provide the best solution, including the centralized and decentralized system. So yeah, we are just about to start to assist the sanitation sector in Chattogram.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jari, you'd like to ask your question and then we take one more and close the session.
You're asking me? No question from us.
No question. Okay, because you have placed a question at what density one should opt for a sewerage system.
Yeah, that's a question for the group to think,
for the group to think.
And debate and discuss within the group at some point.
Okay, thank you. So any further questions from the participants? So thank you very much, sir, for your
thank you very much.
Coming here, and thank you very much. And in case there are any further questions, we will reach them to you and then reach your responses.
Sure, please.
Thank you so much.
Anytime. Yeah, thank you for invitation. Thank you. I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you. Have a nice day.
So, friends, with that, we move into the next part of today's session. It's an important topic. This is on environment regulations and standards related to sanitation in India and South Asia. And we have two speakers. We have Professor Bala Subramanian. He's a professor at ASCII. He also brings with him many years of experience in research and teaching environment. And also he was with the Pollution Control Board. And we also have Dr. Rajeshri Banerjee. He has joined ASCII and he brings with him a lot of years of experience in FSM, labs, testing. And we look forward to listening to them share the details about the regulations and norms and standards in India. We have also requested participants from Bangladesh and Nepal to share some details of the regulations and standards in their country so that it becomes a nice comprehensive understanding for us. And to coordinate this session, I'd like to invite Professor Chari. Mr. Chari, I'll be grateful if you could loop in this entire session.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mani. I have, because of weather, have a little problem with my laptop. So I'm using my mobile phone. So quite a bit of time my camera would be off. Hope I'm audible. Dr. Mali, can you confirm? Am I
Yes, sir.
audible?
Very clear. Very
Okay,
clear.
thank you. So today session is, in my view, is very, very important while planning and designing citywide inclusive sanitation programs. As all of us discussed in the earlier conversations, that safe sanitation is basically aimed to protect public health and improve environmental quality. Now, to say that we are protecting public health or improving environmental quality, we have to have evidence to show that by putting up on-site or STPs or sewer systems, we need evidence to say that our interventions are working, our interventions are actually contributing to improvement of environment and public health standards. So for that, it's very important to have a good understanding of what we are trying to achieve in terms of standards that we want to meet and how do we meet those standards. So today we have two presentations, one by Professor Bala, who's going to speak about environmental regulations in India in particular, and environmental standards embedded in these regulations. The standards keep changing, but as we speak, what are the standards and what are the trends of with regard to these standards? Followed by Dr. Rashri Banerjee will speak about how do we monitor these standards in a cost-effective way, in a credible way. Because if we don't monitor, we don't know whether we are moving towards safe sanitation. So without wasting much time, I would now invite Professor Bala to start his presentation. My only request to him is, we don't want too much of jargon, sir. We want basic understanding, basic definitions, and help us to understand what do we mean by these regulations and what are these standards are all about. Over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Chari and Dr. Mali for this invitation. Hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Definitely, Professor Chari Garu, whatever you have suggested, those points will be, whatever little experience I have, I will be sharing. Can I use the share screen?
Yes, sir.
Is it visible, madam?
It is visible, sir. Can you please place it on slide share?
Is it fine?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. To all the participants, I would like to share my experience and whatever the little knowledge I have about the regulatory aspects in our country. Very briefly, I will be covering these 4 points. May not be in very detail, but I would like to share the essence in the governance system in India and what are the major impacts because of the sanitation, of course, with focus on the septage management. And what are the pollutants to understand why these are very important, and also regulations and standards in our country. These are the 4 points I will be sharing very briefly. To begin with, the governance system in India at the national level and the state level. At the national level, we have the Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. And this is, I would like to say, the apex body which forms all the regulations, standards, and also enforcing mechanism in the country. What type of permits needed, what is meant by violation, industry specific standards or any specific standards. And similarly, at the national level, the Central Pollution Control Board, I would like to say it's a research and a scientific body which supports the Minister of Environment in formulating the policies, procedure, etc. And coming back to at the implementation level, that is implementation means at the enforcement, I would like to say, at the state level, whatever the regulations has been notified by the government of India, that is through Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, the main responsibility has been entrusted on the State Pollution Control Board. Of course, there are other responsible agencies also, but I would like to say key responsible organization for enforcing the standards notified the Minister of Environment and take any action in case of a violation is the State Pollution Control Board. To give a brief about the what are the evolution of the acts in our country, recognizing the importance of the protection of the water and its wholesomeness, the Government of India 1974. That is, I would like to say, the first major act in the environmental area, known as Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1974, and there are subsequent amendments too. And again, on the same lines and principles, I would like to say, with an objective to protect the air environment also, 1981, again, the Government of India has notified the Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981. And under these two acts, the enforcing responsibility has been put on the shoulders of the State Pollution Control Board. And after the Bhopal gas tragedy, the Government of India and all the experts, they felt that it will not be adequate just to have the Water Act and Air Act, because the environment is to be reviewed and seen in a holistic way. So the EP Act, that is the Environment Protection Act 1986, has been issued. We call actually this is an umbrella act. So under this act, the Government of India is having the powers to formulate any regulations which is related to the environment and the safety. May not be just water area. For example, hazardous waste handling and e-waste management handling. Similarly, hazardous chemicals and industry safety aspects also. Anything can be formulated under the EP Act. And recognizing this as a scientific and technical subject, in case of any legal dispute, the Government of India felt that they should have a separate body who can understand in a holistic view, and also they can dispose the litigations in a speedy manner. The National Green Tribunal Act has been. So the NGT is the apex agency in the judiciary system, which will be taking all the environmental related legal issues. And as I mentioned you, under the EP Act, depending upon the need and depending on the knowledge the government has been gained and the necessity noticed, the Government of India from time to time issued very specific regulations. Some wantedly, it's not all exhaustive, only few waste management related regulations I captured here. To handle the solid waste management, mostly the municipal solid waste management rules 2016. Similarly, construction and demolition waste 2016, and plastic waste management rules 2016, e-waste, electronic waste again 2016, biomedical, battery waste, hazardous waste. Why I captured these specific rules is, I would like to say, in these rules, very clearly the notification spells out what is the roles and responsibilities of the different stakeholders. That is the Government of India, what is the role of the Minister of Environment, or the Minister of Urban Affairs, or the Central Pollution Control Board. In case other associated departments also, it has been very clearly spelled out what are the different roles and responsibilities. I would like to say that is one of the very highlight I would like to say. Similarly, at the state level, State Pollution Control Board and the municipal administration, including at the levels of urban local body and the district magistrate also, it has been spelled out. One more very important I would like to highlight in these rules is, apart from the rules and responsibility, lots of technical specifications has been clearly spelled out. For example, solid waste management. What is meant by secured landfill? If somebody wants to design a secured landfill, what is the minimum technical specifications has to be complied? Similarly, on the biomedical waste, somebody wants to go for incinerator. What is the technical specifications for the incinerator? What is the detention time required? What is the temperature to be maintained? What is the operation protocols? And how the efficiency has to be monitored? I would like to say these are the new trend of regulations, not only stipulating the end parameters, that is pollutant shall not exceed so and so level. They also stipulated some sort of a design and operational parameters. And somehow, I would like to say in the last 3 to 4 years in our country also, there is a lot of momentum, and people started understanding what is the pollution problems if it is not properly regulated on fecal waste management. Probably the fecal, I would like to say, recognizing the importance, there is a time to plan for the separate regulations also under the fecal waste management rules, as we did in the other acts. And just to quickly run through the impacts, most of you can be already aware of it, but to have some sort of a just idea, if it is untreated and sorry, one of the serious implications is groundwater and surface water pollution. If the septage or the sewage is disposed on land or within any water body, one thing we can immediately expect is the groundwater and surface water pollution. And one of the main problem will be the odor from the decomposition of the organic matter. And oxygen depletion, that means whenever a highly polluted septage is dumped into a water pond or say any water body, we can expect the depletion of the oxygen levels. And it's a very big source of the pathogens. And also because this will have lots of nutrients, it will have a serious growth for the phytoplankton and algal bloom. And also we encounter now and then, because of the unsafe practices by the operators due to various reasons, whenever they handle the septic tank cleaning, etc., injury and death also. And as I tell you, it's a very land pollution and also aesthetic, it's a very uncomfortable. And very big point is mosquito breeding also. So these are some of the, I would like to say, the aspects which one can expect in case of unregulated discharge. And just to, because Professor Chari has suggested me to kindly quickly run through some of the parameters to understand, especially a lot of administrators may be also in this group. One parameter what we is very important is the designing of any FSTP or STP is a pH. So pH, it gives a feeling of it's acidic or alkaline. If it is a 7 means it's a neutral, more than 7 alkaline and less than 7 it will be acidic. Now one more very important parameter is the total suspended solids. So what is the suspended solids and its properties and its settleable nature will be very important to understand the pollution load. Apart from the pollution load, and it will help in the designing of the treatment system, either is it STP or FSTP. And very important parameter in the design of any FSTP or STP, or also understand the pollution load, is the biochemical oxygen demand or biological oxygen demand. To help you to understand in a very simple term, suppose if the wastewater, the BOD is, let me say, 560 milligrams per liter. Generally, the units will be milligrams per liter. If the value somebody says the 560 milligrams per liter means it's requires 560 milligrams of the oxygen to stabilize itself or decompose. That means it will indicate what is the oxygen demand needed for that effluent at the concentration to stabilize. So BOD is mostly reflects the organic load. And whereas one more important parameter is the COD, chemical oxygen demand. Chemical oxygen demand also similar way, it also not only needs the oxygen for the organic matter and also some sort of inorganic matter. Suppose if the COD is more and more, probably it may in the untreated sewage, probably it may be one of the reasons for contamination of the non-domestic wastewater also. And one more.
However, you have a poll. I saw some poll. Are you running a poll?
No, sir.
Okay.
No. And about one more parameter is the DO, dissolved oxygen. One of the serious problem is whenever the septage or untreated wastewater is being dumped into water body, as I mentioned you, what is meant by BOD, etc. It will take the dissolved oxygen in the water body and to stabilize the septage or the sewage. So in that process, what will happen? DO of the receiving environment, it may be pond or it may be canal, etc. It will be reduced. So one more important parameter to understand the receiving environment before and after the treatment system or the putting the STP, etc., is a DO. And as and when the DO decreases beyond level, it will have it will even the aquatic life also will seriously impacted. Now and then we notice that the fish are dying and floating. With reference to the domestic wastewater, one more important parameter is the MPN, we call it the most probable number. It most probable number of a coliform or fecal coliform bacteria per unit volume. Say generally the MPN value, suppose if they say that 1 into 10 to the power of 2 per 100 ml, it implies that with a sample of 100 ml, we 1 into 10 to the power of 2, so many numbers of the bacteria is there. And fecal coliform again indicates contamination from the human waste. Just to what will happen, certain things we from day one will be observing. I always say something will become even though it's an unsafe activity or unsafe behavior, because of the repeated we observe in a day-to-day activity, it will become an accepted practice, or we feel okay, it's a life, that's all. Without any drainage system, in the absence of underground drainage system, generally we go for the septic tank or we call the on-site containment system. Yeah, definitely on-site containment system will have some sort of a reduction in the pollution load. Just to understand, if any on-site containment system, especially the public toilets, especially where the footfall is very high, if we don't design it properly or if we don't operate it properly, what will be the implication? Just I thought of any one of you have any idea what is the BOD, that is the biological oxygen demand from the public toilet, that means after the septic tank. And very interestingly, very limited literature was available when we did this from the in the IST at I think 3 years back. At Warangal, our team has done a very good, let's say, field research survey to understand what is the level of the septic tank, that is the on-site containment systems, and what is the implications. So 9 public toilets has been identified, again very systematically. Some are new, less than 2 years, that is a new public toilets with on-site containment. Some are moderately old, 2 to 7, some are very old. And some are in very commercial area, some are not with less footprint, etc. And very interestingly, when the data has been captured, if you can see the BOD levels are in the range of 190 milligrams per liter to 5,429 milligrams per liter. And if somebody knows what is the standards and what is the implication, for example, any industry or any activity, if they want to go for permission from the Pollution Control Board, one of the important conditions they stipulate is the wastewater has to be treated to meet the norm of 30 milligrams per liter. Now you can imagine it's around 5,429. Of course, some are in 190, etc. So not only public toilet, just I want all of you to visualize thousands of on-site containment systems will be there in urban local body, and absolutely maybe no data or no levels of what is the level of the pollution. And it's a really, I would like to say, it's a very serious concern, and also it clearly implies the very importance. Having a septic tank is not adequate, or designed as per the need based on the number of users, and it has been designed and duly fall in the code of practices, and also whether it has been operational point of view, that means the dislodging frequency, etc. And just to have an idea, the IS 2470 gives the code of practice, that means how to design a septic tank, what are the dimensions, including the what are the invert levels, etc., what is the slope, etc. And one more point, what we encountered in the total sanitation value chain system is, whenever now and then we will be noticing that people are dying because of the unsafe behavior while handling the septic tank, cleaning, etc. What I want to, why I showed these two is based on this experience and recognizing the need, some of the states, apart from the Minister of Environment and the State Pollution Control Board, I will say urban local bodies and the Department of the Municipal Administration, they have recognized this, and as a way forward, they have issued a policy on how to handle the fecal sludge and septage management. And this policy documents covers the PPE usage, manifest system. That means whenever somebody wants to desludge the septic tank, what are the protocols the operator has to do, and where to dispose, and also a GPS tracking system to avoid illegal dumping, vehicle fitness, renewal of license, I would like to say. This is one of the and just to understand the impacts due to unregulated discharge of septic. In the earlier slide I've shown you, I try to share some of the impacts due to improper design or the operation of the septic tank. Now, whenever the sludge is being evacuated, and when in the absence of any treatment system, definitely it's a known fact that they will be dumped outside the urban local body limits. And again, 3 years back, very limited data was available at that time in our country. So again, at ASTI, our team has tried to generate some sort of a data. It is at Tirupati, Andhra Pradesh. Very interesting. 2 composite samples has been collected, and BOD was in the range of around 4,000 in one sample, and in one more sample is at 10,000 million. This is also one more challenge for designing the FSTP to understand, to arrive what is the organic load. And these are the standards which the Government of India notified. Of course, a lot of legal issues are also still going on the standards, etc. But I would like to say right now the standard is BOD 20 and 30. 20 is in the metro cities, and other locations 30. Just to help you to understand what is the legal provision under the Water Act, many people feel that the legal provision under the Water Act is for industries only. Just I would like to say the second definition, sewage effluent, means effluent from any sewage system or sewage disposal works, and includes solids from the open trays. Legally, in my opinion, urban local body and the industry under the Water Act definition is same in my opinion, and also responsibilities are the same. And also the section 25 of the Water Act clearly states whenever any treatment system or sewage treatment plant or FSTP, they need to take the permission from the State Pollution Control Board. And also it also clearly defines the offenses when somebody violates, including the government organizations. Yeah, coming back to the final point, what are the permits required is whether any environmental clearance, because 2 clearances will be there. Under the state PCB, that is the consent permit, and one more is under the EP Act for certain limited projects. I would like to clarify, under the EP Act, environmental clearance is not required for STP or FSTP, because there is a lot of some people confusion that they require easy. Environmental clearance not required legally. They are required to take the consent to establish, we call it is they don't call it a license or permit, they say the consent to operate under section 25 of the Water Act. Consent to establish, that means before establishment itself, we need to take a permission. Then the PCB will review the site suitability, the treatment system and design norms for discharge, and mode of final disposal, etc. And after completion and before the STP or FSTP is being put into operation, again, the operator has to take the permission called the consent for operation. And while issuing the consent for operation, the PCB will stipulate post-project monitoring conditions, what parameters, what frequency, etc. One permit such that for the AP Pollution Control Board given to Rajam has been captured here. And very interestingly, the local PCB, the state PCB or the local officer of the PCB, based on the need and based on the expertise, they can put additional parameters. So for example, here you can see, in addition to other parameters like pH, BOD, etc., they have stipulated Hellman's X also less than or equal to 1. What I want to say is, while designing the FSTP, etc., it is necessary to take the local state pollution control board also into confidence, because what is the conditions they will be stipulating. Yeah, site selection, is there any guideline? To the best of my knowledge, under the Water Act or Air Act, there is no specific guidelines has been issued. But some state pollution control board have issued certain specific guidelines for specific purposes. For example, any industry, this is with reference to one state pollution control board, they stipulated it shall be away from 100 meters from highway, 50 meters from a state highway, and 25 meters from the village roads, etc. Most probably the same will be applicable for STP or FSTP also. Of course, it will be reviewed by case. What I want to say is, while selecting the sites, probably we need to discuss with the state PCB and to take them into confidence. And under the solid waste management rules, for treatment of the solid waste, landfill, etc. These are the norms actually. So not guideline notified. The same thing probably we can consider when we do the initial screening for the site selection to the extent possible, so that it will help us for the more acceptance. And many of the STPs still, they may or may not have the consent to operate, but legally it is required, and the CPCB in a different studies and different reports to the entity also they have mentioned that it is required. This is some example. And also one more challenge I would like to say, the State Pollution Control Board for the consent management, they will be transition potential and based on their local requirement. Broadly, there is a red category, orange category, green category. And CPCB has given a broader guidelines, but the local state PCB, anything the STP is more than 100 KL, they put in the red category. That means other than less than 100 KL will come under orange category. Red, orange, green will little have impact on the documentation required, and also what is the procedure protocols. Red means more stringent review, more stringent compliance, more stringent monitoring will be there. For example, in Punjab, irrespective of the capacity, everything has been classified as a red category. So my suggestion to use in the, especially we need to always, apart from the national level regulations, we need to cross-check with the local regulations, which will be varying from state to state. Yeah. This is about the regulations and the permits and the basic standards, what I thought of sharing. If there are any questions, we would like to.
Thank you, Balagaru. So this is quite a bit of information to absorb and reflect on, because eventually the efforts of improving sanitation by introducing citywide inclusive sanitation protocols and approaches is to improve public health and environment, and we have to meet the regulatory requirements and comply with the standards. Thank you very much. This is very informative. Now, before I open up for discussion, Sibyl, would you like to run through some of the poll questions that we thought? So it will also open up some discussion around those poll questions. Would you like to play those poll questions?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
So the first question which Professor Bala asked is, do you recommend specific regulations for handling fecal sludge and septage management, like the municipal solid waste management rules, plastic waste management rules? Do you also feel the need to have a fecal sludge and septage management rules? Yes, no. No comments. Any, I hope, Sibyl, can you give instructions to everyone? What they should do?
Everybody is doing it, sir. Right now, 62% have.
Oh, lovely. I'm not able to see. Yeah, oh, sorry.
Yeah, just give 2 seconds.
Oh.
That means apart from the oxygen required to stabilize, it will also take some time to stabilize. And also this decomposition will depend on the temperature also.
So both are correct.
Both are correct. Initially, they designed for 5 days or 20 degrees, and over a period of time, based on the based on the evidence base, they concluded that the same values can be represented at 27 degrees and 3 days.
So if you are a regulator, will you accept if it is BOD 3 or BOD 5? It doesn't matter to you.
Yeah, right now actually they are stipulating the 27 degrees in the permits also.
Okay, thank you very much. Now next question quickly. I'm just conscious of the time, but I think it's good to have these interactions. In sewage septage, what will be the relation between BOD and COD? BOD will be higher than COD, BOD will be less than COD, BOD and COD will always be equal. Again, this is a little technical question, but it's all right. Again, so one is a biological oxygen demand and second is a chemical oxygen demand. So what is the relationship? Civil?
We have 65%, sir.
Yeah,
Shall I
go
launch?
ahead.
Shall I show the results?
So BOD is higher than COD and BOD will be less than. So BOD will be higher than COD, which is not completely right. So that is important, Balagaru. You need to clarify again. It doesn't matter.
Sure, sir.
Can you explain in simple language what is BOD and what is COD from a very practitioner's lens and its relationship?
Okay. I would like to explain you in a very simple and the layman terminology.
Layperson terminology.
Sorry?
Layman is gender insensitive.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, I correct myself. The pollutant will be whether due to organic or inorganic. Inorganic, I can say, is a chemical. Okay. BOD represents the oxygen demand from the organic pollution point of view, and whereas the COD represents the oxygen demand needed to stabilize from the organic and inorganic. So in a way, the COD will be having more demand because it is going to handle both the organic and inorganic. So the COD will be relatively higher than BOD.
Okay. Last poll, Sybil, quickly.
So we had only 3.
Oh, that's all. That's fine. Thank you very much. So there are some questions in the chat room. I will take 1 or 2 and then we will ask the next speaker to come and then we will take up jointly. Now, is there different standards for metro and non-metro? The discharge standards, are they different for metro and non-metro cities? NGT has brought in this, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So if you see that 30/20 and other parameters in the footnote, not for the metros and some sort of, I'm not able to recollect the areas, certain specific places, the little more stringent standards. And other than that is a 30. Of course, now the entire debate is going on in the NGT, etc., to have the uniform standard.
So friends, what it means is for metro, because of the intensity and the density factors, more and more people are polluting. So the standards are stringent as compared to non-metro situations. Now, let me ask friends from Nepal as well as Bangladesh, do you have such differentiation, sir, for metro and non-metro in your case? I'm pulling you in without notice, but I just want to get your view. Any comments from our colleagues from Bangladesh and Nepal about differential
good
standards? Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, I'm from Bangladesh. Actually, I'm not an expert, but whatever I can remember, it's not different. It's
the same.
Yes, it's sort of central regulation.
Central regulation.
State-wise. Not.
Thank you. And how about Nepal, sir? Anybody from Nepal today participating?
Yeah, may I? This is Yogendra from Nepal.
Yes, sir. Boli. Yeah.
We have the formal policy regarding the industrial effluent only, that the industry cannot discharge the effluent more than 50 BOD
Okay.
till date. And in Kathmandu, just upstream of Holy Pashupatinath Temple, any entity cannot discharge the wastewater or the industrial effluent not more than 20 BOD. That is safe in Nepal.
Okay, that's very, very useful. Thank you. Thank you so much. So there are differential standards being looked at. So Mr. Nagesh, would you like to ask you a question? You asked a very important question. Would you like to go for it?
Yes, Professor Chari. So my question is regarding, so we talk about, some we have organized FSSM chain, but then now a lot of, private residential societies are coming up and they are building their own treatment systems. And they are also using that wastewater in gardening and other utilities. So I have just one query that, what are the issues related to their proper functioning, that I see that in many places it doesn't function as per the norms. So what are the regulations that mandate the proper functioning of this one, and what are the systems in place to check whether these systems are functioning properly, because these are standalone system in many society, especially in the big cities.
Mr. Nagesh, you have asked a great question. This is a problem area in many cities. Balagaru, the question, I hope you're clear. It is about decentralized package systems. Many of them are coming up in residential societies, apartment blocks, gated communities. Are they properly regulated? Who is regulating them? Is there any monitoring system in place in our country, or it's anybody and everybody can do whatever they want?
Yeah, right now, the gated communities or the big apartments, etc., the criteria is if the built-up area is more than 20,000 square meters, then those projects only will be taken the environmental clearance under the EP Act, and similarly consent for consent management permits from the State Pollution Control Board. So at the time of the initial permits, that is the initial clearances, the project proponent will be given the details of the technical details of the CWIS plan, and also how much he is going to recycle, etc., and also what is the budget they will be allocating for that. And now it's a monitoring system. I would improving the State Pollution Control Board, or also the major projects more than 20,000 square meters, some sort of a consent management renewal periodically they will review, etc. And my experience is mostly they will not be using for the green belt, etc. I may be wrong, but they will be using for the toilet flushing, etc. And because the toilet flushing, unless otherwise they operate it to the required levels, they will not be able to use it. Otherwise, the residents will have a lot of, I would like to say, the forceful pressure, I would like to say. Of course, there is still a lot to be done in this area.
Okay, but there are many properties in our country, in many cities and towns, which are below 20,000 square meter built up area, but they have been asked to install, like hospitals, restaurants, 5-star hotels, or even 3-star hotels. They have their own package STPs. Who is regulating them? That's a question Mr. Nagesh is asking.
All the hospitals or the hotels also, sir. If I'm correct, more than 3-star is brought under consent management purview. Again, it will vary from state to state. In our state, I think the 3-star and above have been regulated, apart from the 20,000 square meters, and they are supposed to be monitored by the State Pollution Control Board through the consent management.
Yeah, but just like to clarify here, Mr. Nagesh's question, that we recently did a study of more than there are more than 1,000 STPs, package STPs, even Hyderabad, city like Hyderabad, below the environmental norms, but they are unregulated, unfortunately. So this is one weak area on the monitoring side. I agree. Just last question, and then I'll come back to more questions. This is from, are there any standards for sludge these biosolids right now from STP or FSTP, do they have any standards right now for India? Are PCBs regulating these standards?
Right now, there is no notified standards for the biosolids. Like in the regular solid waste, suppose the solid waste has been converted as a compost after treatment, what is the expected norms for the compost? But in the biosolids, there is no standards. But in some of the state boards, while issuing the permits, some sort of a general standards like helminth shall not be so and so, etc. They are keeping some sort of some standard, but in a very structured way, in a notified way, there are no standards, and this is one of the I would like to say area where need to be worked out.
Thank you. So Hemaji, Dr. Hema, right now, unfortunately, we don't have standards for biosolids, both from STP as well as FSTP. In fact, I'm also one of the committee members putting together some draft standards, and they would be coming as advisory from Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs very shortly. So we will be sharing with you the draft during the course. Informally, we will be sharing with you. Formally, will be notified very soon. So there are other questions. We'll take it up. Now I invite, yes, we would be very happy to share the Hyderabad study too, sir. So now we invite Dr. Banerjee to give a brief presentation about the how they do monitoring of these complex parameters of what Professor Bala has indicated, that these are the parameters to be monitored and we have to keep them under check, under control, and we have to regularly report. How do we monitor? Is it expensive or is it easy to monitor, or what is the role of local government? So go ahead, sir. Dr. Banerjee.
Thank you so much, Professor Chari. Am I audible? First of all,
yes, you are audible. Please go.
Yeah. So I would just share my screen and then I'll start speaking about it. Yeah. As you raised the question, like whether they are difficult or easier to monitor, as we go through, I guess everybody would get a feeling like what are these fecal sludge characters based on which fecal sludge, I mean, we were just discussing like fecal sludge, there are no standards. Why there is no standards, or why we have not come up with standards. I tried to explain in part of my talk. And then we'll go into analyzing based on which the parameters are said, Professor Bala said, BOD, COD, pH, TSS, etc. We would try to take some of these parameters and try to discuss how they are classically analyzed in a laboratory setting. And then finally, what are the advancements that have happened over time that these classical methods can be not ruled out, but of course can be replaced with some modern methods. I would be talking about it. But what we generally learn in this is we will try to see through what are the external factors that actually decide onto the characteristics of fecal sludge. Of course, the parameters based on which fecal sludge or treatment thereafter, the water, the biosolids, that should be monitored before discharge or reuse or recycle. What are the appropriate, of course, when it comes to understanding the parameters, analyzing the parameters, one of the principal parts is sampling of septage or fecal sludge. And there are certain, of course, there are no standard methods of sampling, but there are some precautions, there are some ways which we have over the years of practice, we have tried to come up with that the sampling should be done in a particular manner, in a particular strategy. That is something I'll be discussing. And then, of course, I will try to give you a brief idea of what a laboratory should look like, how much a laboratory should be costing, and what are the requirements of a particular fecal sludge management laboratory. To begin with, this is where I say fecal sludge varies because of various factors, be it the kind of a on-site sanitation system where it is contained from where it has been collected, the technology by which the on-site sanitation system is going on, temperature, pH, the climatic conditions, I mean to say the environmental conditions at which this system is working, what kind of admixtures are going into this fecal sludge, whether it is fecal sludge is only black water or even gray water is entering into this fecal sludge treatment system or the on-site sanitation system, how long it has been stored. So all these things come into factor when we talk of the quality of fecal sludge. And if we look into fecal sludge, of course, I'm sorry to show you this offensive picture, but fecal sludge varies from a very light yellowish brownish color to a deep dark black color. So I mean this color grading from yellow to greenish yellow to brown and dark brown and then blackish almost black it depends on the aging of the fecal sludge, how old it is. The older it is, the more darker is it in its color. And then of course when we talk of these characteristics, of course we can broadly divide these analyzing characteristics of fecal sludge, the water, and then the biosolids majorly into three heads of the physical characters. As I said, the color, the odor, solids. Of course, odor, the moment I say odor and I relate it to fecal sludge, it seems to be, I mean, it comes to our mind that it has to be a very offensive odor, but it is not always so. The more a fecal sludge ages, no more it becomes a kind of an earthy smell, and that a time comes which actually smells like I mean, what should I say, soaked soil, I mean soaked dunked soil, almost like that. So that that thing has to be there. Then there are these chemical parameters which Professor Bala has already talked to you of: chemical oxygen demand, biological oxygen demand, nitrogen, as he was talking of some nutrients, nitrogen, the total nitrogen, the phosphates. These are actually considered to be, one hand we can say that these to be pollutants. They are entering into the water. They are there in the water, or we, on the other hand, we can call them to be nutrients. I would come to why we call them actually that way. Then of course there are some very distinct biological characters based on the microbes that reside in these fecal sludge, the treated water, or even the biosolids, whether it is the viruses, bacteria, protozoans, worms, or helminths, as we call them in a more scientific name. So these are some of them. Let me take you one by one based on these characters. But before we go into, just a few moments earlier, we were discussing that why aren't there any standards for fecal sludge? If you look into this slide, and if you follow just one of the parameters, BOD, if you see, this data shows that there is so much of variance in the range of BOD that comes up from different sources, whether it is public toilets, whether it is septic tanks, and going to any of the other parameters, or even for COD, if you can see, it starts from 49,000 to as good as 7 or 608 also. So this wide range, because of the characters, as I was discussing, because the character is is decided by very many factors, it is very difficult for to come up with fecal sludge standards. This is one of the biggest challenges we are facing right now. But having said that, let me go into the parameters to discuss one by one. But before we talk of the parameters, the first thing that comes up is the sampling. As I said, there are no existing standard ways of sampling, but there are some things which we need to be very particular about when we are doing the sampling process. Because it depends on the sampling strategy, it depends on the sampling protocol, that the analytical parameters which we'll be talking about further, or in the set of standards, that will depend. So sampling becomes a very crucial part. And then, as we say, like when we talk of fecal sludge, I could just go up to a place, grab a point of fecal sludge and come back. Now I could, if I'm talking of a kind of a sampling strategy where I actually grab different samples from different locations and then bring them. So it could be a kind of a grab sample, It could be a kind of an integrated sample, which is a combination of grab samples collected at the same time, but at different locations. Or it could be a kind of a composite sample that on a particular point, I collect the I do grab sampling, but at different intervals of time, and then I mix them, make it one sample, and then I collect. So to see the spatial difference over a period of time, what happens? It's not possible that if I want to sample, analyze the flow rate, flow analysis. I mean, say for instance, STP, I mean, at different parts of the day, different what you call concentrations and volumes of samples are coming in. Sewage is coming in. How is it possible that I would, should I grab it every minute, every hour? That is where it becomes a challenging. So that is the time when we go for a kind of a composite sampling. We collect at different intervals, mix them, and it gives an overall idea that what in our last 24 hours, what kind of a sample that has been received by that particular STP or an FSTP. Going by the next sample, of course, when we are going for sampling, there are certain very crucial things we need to know. And when I'm talking this, I'm talking about fecal sludge, something which is very toxic, pathogenic, and risky if it gets to accidentally gets exposed to human beings. So gloves, I mean, personal protective equipments like gloves, safety glasses, disinfection solutions, sampling equipment, all these things, of course, do play a matter. They should be pre-packed, decided, and then one should proceed for sampling. A laboratory personnel should proceed for sampling. But then again, there are other things which I have seen over the years. It's not like just going to the sampling site and collecting any bottles and then taking the samples in it. Based on the kind of parameter you want to analyze, there are certain kinds of materials based on which, I mean, a kind of material in which you have to hold the sample. So for biological oxygen demand, polyethylene or glass bottles can work. But immediately after collection, it has to be stored at 4 degrees centigrade. And the maximum holding time, when I say that, means within the next 48 hours, the sample analysis should be completed, or at least the sample should, within the next 5 to 6 hours, the samples should reach the lab, and the lab should be putting up the incubation for the BOD within the next 8 hours. Otherwise, there will be a kind of ambiguity in the results that are coming. Similarly, for oil and fog, it has to be a glass container. For fecal coliforms, when I talk, it could be a polyethylene or glass. But then again, when I'm talking of some kind of other things, I'll come to like COD or nitrogen or phosphorus. These, we need to add some kind of a preservative, which is generally concentrated sulfuric acid. And that actually gives a kind of holding time before, I mean, as I said, for BOD, it has to be done within 5 to 6 hours. For coliforms, ideally, as I say, it is seen that it should be done within 3 to 6 hours. But for when we add preservatives, they are actually held on into that sample. So we can get a spare amount of time, say for 7 days to 28 days up to that, within which the analysis could be done. But then having said that, sampling becomes very crucial. And when we are going for a sampling has to be, and there has to be a complete kind of corroboration between the sampling person and the lab. The lab should be ready with all the kinds of reagents and analytical chemicals and reagents before the sample reaches the lab. As I said, for BOD, immediately the lab sample reaches the lab, the BOD has to begin. Immediately the sample reaches the lab, the coliforms, total coliforms reading has to be set up, because the more the time lapses from the sample collection to it reaches the lab or the analysis begins, more the actual value of that particular parameter is lost. So that becomes a very crucial part. And obviously, within this complete chain of sampling, from sampling to transportation, preservation to transportation, documenting at every step becomes a very, very, very crucial step. And then finally, let's see into the characters. There are certain very good characters like pH, DO, sir has already talked about, electrical conductivity, total dissolved solids, salinity, whether it is of sludge, whether it is of water, there are certain very modern handheld portable instruments based on which you can actually do a kind of on-site testing of these. So you need not wait till the sample reaches the lab and you do it. Of course, you can do it in the laboratory also. Laboratory will always have a pH meter, will always have a DO meter, will always have a conductivity meter. Okay, you can do it. But on-site parameters do gives a sense that this is what the sludge load that has come in. So that is, if that is one part, then of course, once it reaches the lab, these physical parameters like suspended solids, dissolved solids, volatile solids, fixed solids, and specifically the sludge volume index. It could be done, again, as I say, the sludge volume index plays a very crucial part when we are designing a system where this solid part, that is, you are already aware, the fecal sludge, the main part of treating fecal sludge is separating the solids and liquids, which is 95 to 97% is liquid and the rest is solid. So separating that, often coagulants or precipitants are used. So this sludge volume index actually plays a very crucial role on the concentration or the volume of this precipitant or coagulant that needs to be added to that particular receipt of that sludge that has been received for a particular at a particular plant. Going by the definitions or the terms, I'm not going into the elaboration of these pH, COD, BOD, TKN, phosphate. Professor Bala has already explained to you very clearly what these are and how these affect.
So, Dr. Banerjee, one quick, now that you are on the slide,
yes, yes.
2-3 questions came which you can clarify that would reduce the pressure on Q&A. What is the relationship in a basic language, relationship between dissolved oxygen, BOD and COD? Because these are correlated anyway, but you can clarify in a very simple language.
Exactly. Let me start with dissolved oxygen. It is oxygen, if you see by the chemistry, oxygen is very sparingly soluble in water. But this sparingly soluble concentration of oxygen plays a very crucial role for the aquatic life, whether it is the plants, aquatic plants, or whether it is the aquatic animals. So it is that concentration, if it is too low, it will be very difficult for the aquatic plants or the aquatic animals to breathe in and take in the oxygen. And generally polluted water has a very less amount of dissolved oxygen. Now I'll come to why this happens. It is because of the term biological oxygen demand. This dissolved oxygen goes down. Biological oxygen demand is because it's an indirect indicator of pollution, where a polluted water, as I said, there will be a host of microorganisms, and specifically aerobic microorganisms. Aerobic in the sense, microorganisms which grow in the presence of oxygen. So if they are present in that polluted water, they will actually consume this dissolved oxygen for their own metabolic activities. And that is what is indicated over a period of 3 days or 5 days, that in that 3 days period at a temperature of 27 degrees or a period of 5 days at a temperature of 20 degrees centigrade, the present microbes, how much of the oxygen have they consumed in parts per million or milligrams per liter. And when I say microbes, microbes can take up for their metabolic activities not only the oxygen, they also metabolize the organic material content in the water. So these two are, biological oxygen demand actually gives you an indication of the oxygen level, and consequently the organic matter present in that polluted water, septage or whatever I am talking of. Going by that, the above level is BOD, COD, chemical oxygen demand. Chemical oxygen demand is is actually a mixture of this organic content I'm talking of, as well as the inorganic content. So if gray water is being mixed into this septage or STP, if some industrial pollutant is coming in, there is bound to be kind of an inorganic pollutant. And inorganic chemistry says that any inherent chemical will have the tendency to reach to its maximum oxidation state, that it will try to get oxidized. If it's in a reduced state, it will try to go to a maximum oxidized state. That is the basic chemistry of it. So this chemical oxygen demand depends whether this natural oxidation process in which the oxygen is taken up from the water, as well as the biological oxygen demand, that is the taking up of oxygen from the water because of the microbes. This envisages the whole of the chemical oxygen demand. Have I been able to explain?
Yeah. So basically what it means is that because of the organic and inorganic pollution, the oxygen content in the water gets depleted. Hence, the dissolved oxygen falls down. Hence, the aquatic life and other microorganisms which are there, which are meant to be surviving in that water body, will be deprived of oxygen and they may die. So that's exactly. So please proceed. Please proceed.
Sure. So next comes the terms you see here is TKN, total gel nitrogen phosphate. These, if you look into the perspective of ours, these are actually pollutants. But when it comes to the reuse perspective, we call them to be what you call nutrients, because when they reach the soil, when they reach the water body, the plants in the water body, or even if they reach in the agricultural grounds, they actually act as nutrients. Because if you see agriculture, we actually sow extra phosphatic nitrogen fertilizers, and then nitrogenous fertilizers. So this water actually plays the role. That's the reason they are called nutrients.
I'm conscious of the time. You may need
to I'll just
wrap it up in the next 2-3 minutes.
Sure. So this chemical oxygen demand, there are chemical ways, very complicated ways. But as I say, modern methods have come up where standard instruments are there, where just by addition of few chemicals and then a small digestion of 1 to 1.5 hours, you can do it. Otherwise, in the classical method, it's a 3 hours digestion, 5 hours cooling, and then titration. Long method, the flow sheet as you see at the upper. Similarly, with this biological oxygen demand, it's as we were discussing, it's a 3-day or a 5-day process. No, right now there are instruments, there are things available in our country, and of course approved by the Pollution Control Board, CPCB, where these are biosensor based kind of instruments, where a particular biosensor actually reads your biological oxygen demand in the water, and by an algorithm will tell you in a span of 25 to 40 minutes what would be the biological oxygen demand. So instead of spending 5 or 3 days, you get your results within 40-45 minutes. There are instruments like that. Of course, along with that, there are other instruments where you can actually integrate them with the flow system within the STP or an FSTP, where they can be remotely monitored by IoT-based systems. And as the water flows or the septage flows, certain biosensor-based or certain optical sensor-based instruments can be fitted into the stream, where they can monitor and they can give you a kind of real-time continuous monitoring of the inflow is coming. And as the process goes on, if they are given there, they actually monitor at every step of the process. I'm not going into the quiz. I will directly go into the biological characters. As of course, as I told you, a host of microbes, whether it is bacteria, viruses, protozoa, helminths, all these things play a very part in the fecal sludge. And of course, this is something where we need to know the minimum detection level. This graph actually shows, the red dotted lines shows that this is the minimum content that should be there that the experimental methods can actually detect. And that is the reason we take coliforms or E. coli to be the indicator microorganism to understand, because all the other coliform bacteria, they are in a much lower concentration, but lower concentration does not mean that they don't pose any kind of risk. So indicator microorganisms, they are always present in fecal waste. They are pretty in high concentrations, and their methods, I wouldn't say they are easy, but they are much more simpler to detect and quantify. So E. coli, fecal coliforms, or total coliforms, these are some of the ones, these are indicator organisms which talk of microbial pollution in the water. Of course, there are other pathogenic indicators which can be taken up. And as I show you my slide, the most probable number, as we say, there is a long procedure of presumptive test, confirmatory test, completed test, which takes around 4 to 5 days before we can actually talk about whether the water is microbially polluted or not. But having said that, there are modern methods, biosensor-based methods, where we know coliforms have a very distinct lactose fermenting enzyme, beta-galactosidase. So biosensors have been detected, made on these beta-galactosidase, and based on that, the within a span of 1 or 2 hours, a coliform pollution can be said. Or even, as we know, the very popular term today is the PCR term, PCR, polymerase chain reaction detection method. Again, within 3 to 5 hours, this can be said. Of course, one very big concern of ours is in the recent times is because of the virus that is present. Of course, as I said in my previous slide, there are a host of viruses that are present. And these are some of the detection methods, direct detection methods, virus isolation methods, serological detection methods, based on which viruses can be detected in the septage or water or other components. But there are certain challenges, as I told you. These are some of the challenges. That's the reason every laboratory cannot practice the detection of viruses in septage or wastewater. Of course, for the protozoans and helminths, similar kind of methods do exist. And of course, heavy metals and pesticides need more advanced instruments like GC and ICP-MS and all. So these are some of the things that, some of the basic parameters and some of the procedures based on which these can be analyzed. Coming to the monitoring frequency. When I talk of sludge, as I told you, an on-site analysis, and then later on a grab sample or a composite sample for every batch of slide is good enough for analysis. Treated water, if it's a continuous system, monthly output can be checked in. But of course, on a quality assurance or a quality control manner, preferably at the intermittent stages of treatment, samples should be collected and analyzed based on the parameters which has been already discussed. Finally, when it comes to the biosolids, the solid part of the septage, of course, a grab or a composite sample should be analyzed for all the not standards, the parameters that we generally consider on right now for its safe use or recycling or kind of a thing. So every batch it is going out of the STP or out of the FSTP, a kind of analysis should be done to assure that something safe is going out of that particular area.
Thank you.
So
I am sorry that we are running late. So any last point you can wrap it up, and then in 30 seconds we can move forward.
Yeah, as I said, these are some of the 3 kinds of labs we can have where some of the basic parameters could be analyzed. Then there could be there could be an upgraded version, and finally an updated advanced version of labs, which you can see. I have given you more or less a space requirement, a kind of human power requirement, and a kind of cost of establishment. When I say infrastructure, just the instruments and cost I'm talking of, I have not taken into consideration of the other costs. That is only, and of course, once you establish a lab, certain kind of recognition certifications need to be done, and that is something that should be there. And then finally, that's it, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So it's pretty useful. It's a little rushed session, but it's also we are trying to understand the biology, chemistry, and the microbiology in 20 minutes. So it's not that easy, but the idea is to give a sense of parameters we need to monitor, that laboratory practices are improving in our country, as well as more advanced real-time monitoring systems are available, and the do's and don'ts while doing the sampling as well as analysis. So I think these are some very useful points. There are few questions. I will take another 5 minutes to clarify some questions. And Kaushikiji felt that we should spend more time on such sessions. Absolutely, ma'am. We will do, if needed, we will add a little more additional time for in the subsequent sessions. Now, couple of points, Dr. Banerjee. Isn't it a standard water quality testing lab can be upgraded to FS testing?
Yes, it can be. My experience is it can be, instead of establishing a separate FS lab, upgraded, but that should be a separate section within the lab premises where these analyses will be carried off. And of course, a separate set of human power who are specifically trained to handle fecal sludge and its byproducts. It cannot be the general people who are working on drinking water or kind of other analytes that they can work on fecal sludge. They should be specifically trained, and they should be a separate class because they are working on a more toxic, dangerous kind of thing than drinking water. So cross contaminations, cross things should not be happening. So distinct areas should be designated, distinct human power should be trained and assigned.
Okay. One important question is, you know, this guideline standards protocols that we discussed in the classroom, including the frequency of sampling, the do's and don'ts of sampling, and do's and don'ts of transportation of these samples. Is there any document that we can share with all the delegates in a very simple way? I think we have already prepared. Can we do that?
Yes, absolutely. There is actually a scoping paper that was written on the validation of this fecal sludge and its treatment processes. I guess Shibal and Jyotsna already have that document, and that can be shared as a part of that.
So friends, we will share the document which will give some parameters and the description of these parameters and how to monitor, frequency of monitoring in the context of wastewater and fecal sludge. One or two other questions quickly. Pankaj Sap asked one question on is coliform colony count method still relevant for biological contamination?
Yes, sir, it is. And when I said coliform colony count, I didn't say colony count. In India, we still follow the most probable number, the statistical analytical method of coliforms. We don't go by the colony forming units, which some countries do follow.
Okay. So what is the maximum time period to follow from collection to testing at laboratory? What is the time duration?
If I talk of, based on the parameters, as I said, chemical parameters, if you add those preservatives, they give you quite an amount of time, 7 days, 14 days, 20 days, depends on the parameter to parameter. But when it comes to BOD, it has to be within, from collection to BOD incubation, it should happen within the next 5 to 6 hours. When it coliforms, it is more thing, it should be happening within the next 2 to 3 hours, conditioning that the samples have been transported at 4 degrees centigrade.
So if you are taking a sample in a remote area, we need to make arrangements to send it in a controlled condition to a nearby lab. It is like our COVID sampling that's happening at the same level.
Absolutely.
So we need to ensure that it is transported properly. Thank you very much for clarifying it. One or two other points, and then we can open up. Kaushiki ji asked one question. Is there any overall monitoring framework used for the treatment plants? Is there any overall monitoring framework used for the treatment plants? Are there any checklists that needs to be followed during setting up or for continuing the treatment facilities?
I would ask either you or Professor Bala to take
Bala
up this.
would you like to respond quickly? Otherwise, I can also respond, but Bala Garu, please go ahead. Overall monitoring framework used for the treatment plants, any checklist? Okay, so Kaushiki ji, yes, there is a monitoring framework defined predominantly by the state regulatory agency. They give the periodicity of monitoring, parameters to be monitoring, and there is a checklist that is readily available. Of course, we have prepared the checklist for setting up any treatment plant, STP, FSTP, both from site selection point of view, as well as from the layout design point of view, FSTP layout design, as well as distance from community and distance from water body. So some of those guidelines, these are all checklists which we can share with you. That's readily available. We have enough understanding and experience in the country, which we would be very happy to share with you. I think Dr.
So before you, sorry, sir, there's a hand raised by Mr. Pankaj Mathur.
Yes. Yeah, please go ahead. I'm not able to see. Sorry about it. Yeah. Pankaj, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. First of all, Dr. Rajai, I mean, this is really such a beautiful session and I was continuously following it. It's really very good for the people who are there, as part of this course and who are already, working with fecal sludge treatment plants or maybe systems or STPs. I have 2 points to maybe, for further discussions over there or just to keep in mind. Number one is that, of course, you have tried to put a kind of highlight that fecal sludge has its own, challenges in terms of sampling, in terms of its handling, as well as, testing process, because they are not automated like the sewage treatment plants where we see actually, handled by the good companies or, maybe the municipal corporations. But fecal sludge treatment plants definitely require some kind of more work in terms of the sampling, the testing, and also adherence to the standards. In fact, the standards are still not there. So this is something which requires a lot of work. Second is general for Dr. Cherry and Dr. Malini to maybe consider is that these are the sessions which we require as group where we need to know the technology aspect of it, plus also the nitty-gritty of the fecal sludge as such in terms of its treatment and in terms of sampling, testing, or maybe overall disposal. So best practices are of course there, but maybe if we can set some time in the coming session in terms of having these kind of more sessions, that will be very useful for us. So just for a group to consider, the coordinators to consider. But thank you very much again, Dr. Rajai. Very informative session and very useful. And I think it will be good for the participants to have some kind of ready reckoners. Like this presentation which is there. Of course, we cannot do everything in a session of 1 hour, 1.5 hours. But if these ready reckoners are there available with us in terms of our practices, I think that will be very useful. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Pankaj. So, Dr. Malini, not only Pankaj Saab, but a lot of other participants also asked. You may, she's the best person to sort of take a view on this. Dr. Malini will handle that bit when to have, and we can have a separate session if needed. There's one or two other points that came up. I just want to flag it. Is there any reference of adding lime to the sludge for odor removal? This question I would like to reserve it for the treatment system session. We will be covering this in the subsequent session, where especially when you are going for trenching, deep row trenching, lime addition is very important as a pre-treatment. So we will take up these issues in the subsequent sessions, sir. So kindly bear the little more time where this question will be answered. Dr. Malini, I will having a little more detailed session, and when someone asked why this session should be simplified further, so I think there is a merit in that. You can take a view and we can have a session. So the point I would like to summarize in the next 30 seconds and hand it over to you, Dr. Malini. The point here we have to understand, friends, what Professor Bala and Dr. Banerjee has highlighted. When you're monitoring, we have to we have understood that we have to monitor both physical, biological, and pathological parameters, microbial parameters, and not just at FSTP or a discharge point at the outlet of a treatment facility, that's outlet monitoring is from a environmental compliance point of view. It is equally important that has come out during this session, and I would request all of you to please give attention to this, that monitoring also has to be done and the town itself, not just at the FSTP, but at every on-site system, a decentralized package system in a hotel or a restaurant or a gated community or a hospital, or even an on-site system or a public toilets, which are discharging directly into nalas and drains, causing public health outcomes, negative public health outcomes. FSTP post-treatment is primarily helping on environmental improvements, protecting the discharge point, which eventually go into a water body after treatment plant, STP or FSTP. Whereas these on-site system outlets are going into nalas, and if the pollution potential is 8,000, 9,000, as Professor Bala has indicated, of BOD, milligrams per liter, then that impact is a direct public health compromise of the whole community. So I just like to reiterate and leave it to Dr. Malini that this monitoring system is not just for FSTP. Monitoring system is required for end to end, from containment onwards all the way to treatment and post-treatment requirements that we are talking about. So I think that's a key takeaway from this session, and particularly the point which the case study that Balagaru has presented, that each of these on-site systems are discharging with partial treatment because of the poor design of the on-site systems. It is discharging directly into the drains, leading to health and environment problem, and that's where JICA system, as described by Hashimoto-san, was very, very important for us to consider. So with these words, I would request Professor Dr. Malini to take over, and I request her to see some of the questions came, and then what are the next steps. Over to you, Dr.
Thank you, Professor Chari. Thank you, everyone, for being so participative and also for your feedback. We've taken note of all. Then we are already meeting for 3 hours in a week. Meeting beyond that, we are absolutely available. However, you need to indicate to us if you would like to have one more session on something, and we are happy to organize. The 3 hours in a week itself is considered to be quite high contact session for working professionals, and that is the reason why we designed it this way. So there is a feedback form which has been shared by my colleagues Jyotna and Shibil. This is session-wise feedback. So please do share your, and there is an opportunity for you to provide your comments. So it will be very useful for us, because I'm cognizant of the fact that this is a multi-stakeholder group of 100 members here, and there might be different requirements, and we would try our best to balance and meet all requirements and expectations. However, receiving your feedback with comments would be very useful for us to take up changes in the structuring, and we will do it. That's point one. Point two, I'm sure many of you are going through the LAN, the LMS, that is the Learning Management System, and we urge you to read the PPTs. All the PPTs which are presented are already available. So it gives you a sort of a background. So please do find some time, maybe an hour, prior to the class to look up just the PPTs so that there is a background, and then, you know, we can use this time for more clarifications. The third point is that there is a tool which was used, a link which was used for questions. So any questions that you feel were not answered today, or you over the weekend you want to read some more and you come up with some questions you need clarifications on, please use that tool and we will post again. It is a common FAQ running from the beginning till the end of the program. As I told last time, there's an option for hitting on the like button. So if there are many people asking the same questions and we feel that it is better clarified in person, we will organize a separate session only for responding to the questions. But we need you to feed those questions on that link. And the last point I would just like to make is when we were starting the program, we had shared the program calendar with you. And things like monitoring, things like FSTP technology, they are all laid out in a particular fashion so that learning is incremental. So we are aware that you feel the need for monitoring, understanding monitoring systems. However, monitoring will come towards the end of the program, just as sanitation planning will come right after the basic foundational concepts are covered. So we have a plan in mind, and that's the reason why. So please do look up the calendar one more time. And if you feel that what you are looking for is not covered, for example, just to Kaushiki ma'am's point, if you are looking for something in monitoring, you please look up the learning management system also. If you don't find that within the monitoring, please let us know and we will include it by the time we get there. So it is a joint process and we have to work on this together. So please help us in meeting your expectations, and happy to speak to Dr. Banerjee and Professor Bala for having a special session to once again have a detailed discussion on this, if there is a request from all of you.
Dr. Mali, one or two questions are not covered. Sibyl can record them and we can reply to them subsequently. Yeah.
So there is a tool which is, as I said, there is a tool which has been.
Okay. No, in the chat box, I saw a couple of them, so you can.
Yeah. So we will add those to the FAQs.
To that. For example, on the order management, Nurul Amin Saab asked question. We will reply to that. Definitely will.
Yes.
Thank
you. So thank you very much once again, and look forward to
Ma'am, one minute, ma'am. I would like to apologize to Nurul Amin sir and Vidya ma'am for not giving time for you to present. We were running out of time. So sorry for that, and we will give you time in upcoming session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shibil, for bringing that up, and thank you for preparing, sir. And we will accommodate that session, and it will be of great use for all the participants as well. Thank you very much. So see you again soon in a few days. See you. Bye-bye. Thank you.